Welcome to Sharsheret's Shalom Shabbat program. My name is Melissa Rosen, and I'm the Director of Training and Education at Sharsheret. I am happy to say that many of my colleagues are also on today and have helped create this wonderful program. You know, we're always grateful for an opportunity to reconnect, to recenter, and I found, I'm sure you have too, that as we deal with the ups and the downs of this pandemic, these opportunities are more important than ever. You were muted on today as you entered today's program. Please stay on mute so that we can clearly hear today's presenters. As always, this program is being recorded, but no faces or names will show on the recording other than those of the presenter. But if you wish to turn your video off for privacy now, that option is on the bottom left of your screen. And you can also choose to rename yourself if you prefer to remain anonymous. You can do that by clicking on the three dots on the top right of your photo square. And I just want to let you know that you will be notified when the recording and transcript of today's program is posted on Sharsheret's website next week. Please feel free to share that link with anyone you think might enjoy today's program. However you celebrate, whatever your experience with Shabbat is or has been, we can all use an opportunity to recenter ourselves in the midst of treatment, survivorship, the pandemic, or just the normal chaos of a life well lived. As with all our Shalom Shabbat programs, that's what today is about. But we're also going to add to that agenda today. With the holiday of Purim just around the corner, today we're also going to speak about joy. Purim falls in the Hebrew month of Adar, which is all about embracing joy. Hopefully, we'll each come away from today's program with a bit of inspiration and excitement for the week ahead. As we begin, I want to introduce you to one of today's special guests. Cantor Toby has joined us in the past, and it's her beautiful voice that keeps enticing us to ask her back. She grew up in New Jersey and was a member of her shul choir by 11, soloing by age 12. After moving to Los Angeles to attend the USC Thornton School of Music, Toby sang at the Synagogue of Creative Arts. She completed the Baal Tefillah program at the University of Judaism and joined the Cantors Assembly CICA program for learning the Cantorate. Cantor Toby began teaching B'nai Mitzvah at Valley Beth Shalom in California over 10 years ago. She'll be singing 2 songs with us today. So the screen is yours, Cantor Toby. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa. It's such a pleasure to be back with all of you at a celebration for Shabbat. So one of my favorite pieces for Kabbalat Shabbat comes at the end of the Amidah, after we've had a reflection of silent prayer, to sing Shalom Rav. And if you can look at the text at the bottom, grant abundant peace unto Israel, your people forever. This sums up Shabbat. We're asking for peace for ourselves, for the nation of Israel, and in these days of war in Ukraine, certainly for peace in Ukraine. So if you know the song, I bet a lot of you do, feel free to sing along. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
Simply beautiful. That is actually one of my favorite songs, and one that really lets me know it's time to celebrate Shabbat. Thank you so much. That was gorgeous. And we'll bring you back for at the end of the program to close us out. Okay. I mentioned in my introduction that we're going to speak not only about the intentional break from everyday chaos that Shabbat can provide, but the importance of adding joy to that break. After all, with Purim next week, it makes sense to add joy to the conversation. At each Shalom Shabbat program, we discuss how important the intentional break is, how it impacts healing, mental health. How we each experience that pause is different, but we each need some kind of pause. I'm wondering if maybe we need to add something, if we need something more than just that pause. Maybe we need to add joy to the equation. You know, depending on where we are in our own personal cancer experiences, that may not feel so easy or even so natural. But we have a model for incorporating joy in the holiday of Purim. To celebrate the survival of the Jewish community in the face of Haman's evil, we celebrate and celebrate and celebrate some more. We sing and dance. We share delicious treats. We shout, we scream, we wear costumes, and we wear masks. Perhaps wearing masks allows us to be a bit more raucous, more joyful, less inhibited. You know, I get that. My own cancer experience definitely included some mask wearing. I think we all wear masks during cancer to get through the day, to protect our families, maybe even to protect ourselves. Since cancer masks already hide some part of our current identities, current state of mind, maybe, let's use that opportunity to cast off some of the sorrow, the anger, the chaos that fills us at times. It's okay to feel joy while we are dealing with cancer. In fact, it's great. Happiness, joy, celebration, fun can all impact both our physical and our mental health in wonderful ways. Let's use the masks we wear during cancer, not only for protection, but for joy, just like Purim. Let's find ways to add fun, playfulness, joy to our lives. There are no rules that say that joy and cancer must never overlap. When we say fake it till you make it, there's actually some truth to that saying. I am sure there are plenty of people who enter Purim overwhelmed by cooking, delivering hamantash, making costumes, maybe even wrangling hyped up children. Yet it's hard to leave a Megillah reading not joyful. It's just simply too much fun. So of course, as I encourage you all to embrace joy, it's important to remember that not all of us who wear masks of happiness actually feel that way. That may be why sometimes we feel we need a mask. So please be sensitive to that. Check in with someone you think might be masking. After all emotions are valid and help us to process our situations. Yet, as we approach Purim, I want to encourage you to use your mask differently. Yes, as a source of strength and protection, but also as an excuse an excuse to be silly, to be joyful, to be happy. Perhaps this Shabbat is the perfect time to welcome it back into our lives. I want to try something. Take a moment right now, everyone on the screen, to think of something that brings you joy. We don't need a whole detailed description, 1 or 2 or 3 words, something easy, something you can access or create without too much trouble, something you can commit to this coming week. Hold on to that thought, type it into the chat box, but don't press enter yet. I'm going to count to 3 in a couple of seconds. And on 3, together, we'll all press enter, and then we'll see a waterfall of ideas on our screens, ideas we can all try as ways to bring joy into our lives. So again, open your chat box, take a second to write just one thing. Okay, and I'm going to count to 3, and then let's all hit enter. 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, I love it. It's all coming in. That's amazing. A lot of families. Yeah. Some sort of tree. Oh, probably planting trees. Grandchildren, nature, music, art, more nature. Yiddish. I love it. Sunshine. Oh, thank goodness we're coming into that season. And some of us are already there, depending on where you're located. That was great. Take a look at some of the things that people said. See one of those things that maybe you haven't gotten involved with before, and try and try something new, or at least commit to one thing you know brings you joy this weekend. Okay. Now I want to introduce you to our second special guest, a Sharsheret caller and my wonderful neighbor, Joelle, who has graciously agreed to share her experience with cancer, masking, and joy. You know this is going to be an important experience to share when she agrees to speak, and I quote, only if she can be honest. So, Joelle, the screen is yours, and we're going to put onto the screen a particular image you shared with me.
Thank you. When Melissa asked me to speak today about joy, and she told me it was because she thought of me because I'm someone who exudes joy and happiness. And I thought, I should tell you something. I actually battle with depression and anxiety, and I wear a pretty good mask because a lot of people over the years have commented to me how happy I seem and how joyful I seem. And, and I said, well, I will agree to do it, but only if I can be honest. And when she said that it's not just about joy, but also about the masks we wear, I thought, wow, this is actually kind of perfect, because joy is sometimes the mask that we wear. So I don't intentionally hide my depression and anxiety, but we do whatever we need to do to get through our days and our lives. And very similar to what Melissa said, she used a different expression, but the concept of mi lo lishma ba lishma. So from doing something not for its own sake, you come to do it for its sake. So the same thing is with joy. Sometimes we have to search for the joy and really work to find it, to bring it into our lives. But by making those efforts, we actually then do find true joy. When I was diagnosed in February 2019, I remember my husband saying to me right away, and when I mean right away, I mean within the first 30 minutes of diagnosis, that it won't be as bad as I think it will be. And now he's a doctor, so he understood more about cancer and my diagnosis than I could possibly. And he understood how far we've come and the strides that have been made in breast cancer research. I was thinking, how am I going to parent through this? At the time, I had 3 4-year-olds, a 5-year-old, and an 8-year-old. And I said to him, I love you, hun, but that's a pretty asinine thing to say. And we ended up laughing. And that night we spoke, and I actually apologized for getting breast cancer. And we laughed again. And somehow we kept laughing. For his birthday last year, we have a family custom where we hang up signs all over the house for everybody's birthday. And for his birthday, one of the signs I printed out was born in 1975, all original parts. And I said, we're both born in the same year. And I said, you're not gonna be able to use that sign for my birthday. And we laughed. And people take their cue from me. So one of the things I did before I started chemo was I cut my hair really short and I dyed it like pinks and purples. And it was really fun. People loved it. A day or so after I did it, I was so sad. And I realized I did not like it at all. It made it too real for me that suddenly this is real. This is really happening. But I did it as a mask, perhaps, so that I could help my kids cope with it. They were young, and I wanted them to see that this was going to be fun. And we had talked about that I was going to lose my hair, and we were very open with the kids in a way that was age appropriate. And everybody else loved it. And so I had to wear a mask for a little while to get through that. And it did bring joy and happiness for my kids in that case, which for me, to help them cope with what I would be going through and what we would as a family be going through, was really important. And at one point, talking about the cues that people take from you, my then 6-year-old, he had a birthday. We were out for a meal on Shavuot, and at that point I didn't have any hair, and it was, his friend had come to the house, and I never wore anything on my head when people were in my house. So his friend, his 6-year-old friend, saw that I didn't have any hair. And then we were out for a meal with that family and a few others, and my parents were actually visiting, and they were there too. And I was wearing a wig, and she was looking at me really strange. And I said to her, "Are you wondering how I have hair?" She's like, "Yeah. How did it go back so fast?" And my 6-year-old son, without missing a beat, pulled my wig right off my head in front of everybody and said, "It's not her hair, it's a wig." And I burst out laughing. I knew it wasn't malicious. I knew he was 6 years old. And so because I laughed, it could have been the most awkward moment ever. Everybody laughed. And I remember a friend of mine actually saying to me that night that, like, it's amazing how I'm dealing with this. And it was funny. I have to admit, my parents had to leave the room because it was harder for them, but that's understandable. Seeing your child go through this is not something any of us want. But it was a pretty amazing experience. Now, I don't know how I managed to go to each chemo treatment with a positive outlook. Considering I do deal with depression and anxiety, I do tend to look at life, or I try to look at life as in a positive, optimistic way, glass half full. It is my nature. And at some point, once COVID started, somebody I had met actually through Sharsheret, she and I were speaking, and she said, "So how are you?" And I said, "Oh, you mean in terms of cancer?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, cancer was so 2019. Now, she burst out laughing, and she's like, "I love that. Can I quote you?" I was like, "Sure." I didn't realize what a big deal it was to say that. But for me, maybe I was lucky that COVID hit as my treatment was ending, and you have to kind of put things in perspective. I knew, in my situation that I had to get through that year, that I knew it was going to be a rough year and I had to get through it. But then who would have expected that COVID would come next, and it couldn't just be about me anymore. I had 5 kids learning from home and other things to focus on. So it was kind of like a blessing in disguise, perhaps, that I had to kind of, breast cancer was just so 2019 suddenly. And that was good. And it did help, bring me joy, I would say. Now, I do still struggle with depression. That's not going to go away suddenly. And because of my tamoxifen that I have to take, we had to change up my meds because of drug interactions. I'm sure many of us have had to deal with similar types of situations and challenges. But I do manage to find joy. I am taking an art class right now, which is bringing me so much happiness and joy. It's a highlight of my week. And I think it's so important for all of us to try and find the things that bring us joy. And Melissa's now sharing this great image that my friend actually just shared with me by chance on Sunday. We all wear our masks. Some days it's easier to have the joy, and some days we put on that mask and it's just beneath the surface that we're feeling sadness. And it's important to have people that we can remove our masks with, because by finding the people with whom we can remove our masks, it gives us the support we need. And through that, it actually allows us to find happiness and joy by having to hold in the feelings of whether it's depression or sadness or angst or whatever we might be going through, and going through it alone, I think makes it so much harder. But through finding support systems and our people, it actually helps to bring joy and happiness into my life. I mean, no one in any situation always feels joy and happiness. I think there's a term these days called toxic happiness, but it is really important to find those safe spaces and things that bring us joy. And by removing my mask and talking about it openly, it has actually allowed me to be a more authentic and joyful person. And I wish that for everybody, that Shabbat brings me great joy. And I hope that you'll find joy through this program and through whether it's Purim, and find joy in the, in the weather, the sunshine, and grandchildren, our children. I mean, I have 5 children, and the hugs and snuggles I get bring me joy. Yes, there are challenges in raising lots of young children, but in general, I do find, even with my depression and what I go through, but I do have, thank God, a lot of joy in my life.
Well, thank you so much. It was such an important perspective, such an honest perspective, and I can tell you that I know, being a neighbor, you bring joy to a lot of people. So thank you. Okay. Speaking of Purim, because we've been speaking, I am excited that Cantor Toby will be leading us in one additional song, Chag Purim, traditionally a children's song. You can't help but smile. So even though we're all staying on mute, please feel free to join along. And if you happen to have brought that box of pasta with you today, you can use that as a grogger or a noisemaker, because we're going to drown out what we need to drown out. So Cantor, please.
Thank you, Melissa. So if you've got your box of pasta, grab it so we could shake it together. And yes, Melissa's right, it is a children's song, but it's such a fun song. And we all sang it with our children, I'm sure, when they were little. And frankly, it was the first song that I thought of to ingratiate the joy of Purim. So if you know it, sing along. Oh, there's the lyric. Perfect. So if anybody needs the lyric, there they are. Chag Purim, Chag Purim, Chag Gadol LaYehudim, Masechot Rashanim, Zmirot Verekudim, Havana Risha Rash Rash Rash, Havana Risha Rash Rash Rash, Havana Risha Rash 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 Barashanim. Purim's here, it's a holiday so dear. Mask and song bring along, groggers loud and clear. Havana Risha Rash Rash Rash, Havana Risha Rash Rash Rash, Havana Risha Rash Rash Rash. Purim time is here. Chag Purim Sameach, everyone.
Sorry, I needed to unmute myself. Thank you so much. What a fun way to close today's session. As we conclude, I want to remind you, of course, that Sharsheret is here for you. We continue to offer online content. You can always go online and view any webinar you may have missed. On a special note, if you enjoy this type of programming, please plan to join us for our third annual Sharsheret Unseder on Friday, April 8th. We will be talking about the way matzah changes when you add things to it, and the way we change when we add things to us. Let's post that registration link in the chat box, although there certainly will be more marketing as we get closer. Of course, remember, we do have our wonderful team of dedicated social workers, a genetic counselor that are always here to help you address your concerns. Please don't hesitate to reach out, and we can paste that contact information in our chat box as well. Once again, I want to share my deep thanks to Joelle for sharing her story, and to Cantor Toby for sharing her beautiful voice. And of course, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. Wishing you a Shabbat filled with quiet and comfort and joy. Shabbat Shalom. Bye.